Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Discussing a Murderer. This is your host, Jeff Jones, and with me is the panel. And I will go from the top to the bottom today. How you doing there, Big Jeff?
Hey, I'm doing great, Jeff. Thanks for having me on. Really excited about doing this. I think the panel's really coming together as a team, and looking forward to another exciting episode.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Thanks for coming. And Kelly.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me back. I agree with Jeff. The panel is doing well. I'm enjoying this as we go along, and thank you very much.
And Dr. Silkman.
You're not too worried about having a real doctor on your panel, are you there, Jeff?
I am not intimidated.
Thank you so much, guys. It's really good to be here. And I like to echo everyone else's words. I reckon as a panel, we're doing really great. And it's fantastic that we've gone back to the beginning and looking at MAM again. Great job, guys.
And I just want to add to that, Dr. Silkman, to thanks to all of the viewers that have been on this journey with us and that have been contributing to the comments and the lives. And I think we've decided that we will be doing a live broadcast. We just don't have a schedule for that yet. So keep an eye out for that. And thanks everybody again for being such faithful listeners. With that said, last week we left off with a news report that had kind of come through. I believe it was the day that she was reported as missing, and the news report started to come out. We watched that, and now we're going to watch the second half of this news report.
One of her clients is Auto Trader, and police say she was in Manitowoc County Monday afternoon at 3 different private homes taking pictures of cars. Ironically, Hallbach's last stop Monday was at Stephen Avery's home.
She was there to photograph this 1989 Dodge Caravan. Avery regularly advertises in Auto Trader magazine and says Hallbach has visited his home on assignment several times in the past year.
Did she mention any other appointments that day or anything like that?
No, I don't think so. Because most of the time she takes a picture, then she runs down the sewer number, and she comes and collects the money, and that's about it.
Okay. So what kinds of questions were police asking you?
This one, she was out here with time around. And that was about it.
Yeah. Did they ask you to take a polygraph or anything like that?
No. Well, tonight, cops come and they asked me if I remember anything. And I told them no. And then they asked me if they can come in the house and check the house over. I said, I got no problem with that. Come on in. So they checked the house all over. Everything was fine, and they left.
And I mean, knowing her, what are your feelings for her parents? And
they must be going through hell.
We just watched that clip from when Stephen has that interview with the news report. I just wanted to touch base because the irony of it is, the key word I want to use is perception and interpretation. When I watched that, and I'm pretty sure you could all probably agree, he seems really genuine. There's a calmness to him. He doesn't seem rattled like he's hiding anything. You know, he's very straightforward. He's telling them what the last time he saw her and the interaction, and giving the not too much detail, but just enough that tells the story. Yet that same clip was used in by a behavioral panelist, which is apparently a specialized body language experts, and they from that were able to apparently create a baseline that proved that he was a psychopath. So I just wanted to touch base on that, because when I watch him, it's moments like that I wonder, you know, we're hearing people like Colburn saying at the very beginning, he was very straightforward. There didn't seem anything dodgy. We have another officer who came forward and said, oh, when I saw him, he seemed pretty straightforward to me. I don't think he was telling any lies. In fact, on the morning of, I think it was Romica, he makes that passing comment going, I don't think he has anything to do with it. So if everyone else is picking up those feelings at the beginning of, you know, he's being legit, I just find it really crazy that people that have been doing YouTube videos are addressing it and claiming he's a psychopath off the same things that we're seeing. Just wanted to address that because I think that's something interesting we could bring in. And again, statistics, like I do, body experts, they're not exactly science. It's all interpretation and opinion at the end of the day. It can be used, and it is used in law enforcement, but you got to remember, especially when we get to the Brendan Dassey side, they use body language, Fassbender and Wiegert, to say that they realized that he was hiding something, where, come on now, you were reading the really, really wrong signs. That was, you know, a 16-year-old kid that had a disability that you were interpreting as sinister where it wasn't. So I just wanted to touch base on that.
But there's a different one that I saw that said, is the reason why he keeps his hand in his pocket the whole interview is because that's the hand that he has the cut on that he opened up when he did Bob's Blazer. So
that's right. Yes, that as well. Yep, that as well. He keeps his hand. Yep.
I think in that very same clip, because they've got a full interview of Stephen, and he actually uses his right hand to open up the door of the van, right? So he actually does use his right hand to open up the door. But I agree with Kelly. Let's think about it, right? During that interview, Stephen Avery was meant to have raped, tied Teresa Halbach to a bed, shot her 10 times, dismembered her, and cremated her and hid her RAV. All of that, right? That's what the state eventually will allege. Now, if you have a look at Stephen, he was pretty cool, calm, direct. He never gave any indications of any nefarious doings. And don't forget, his own fiancée rang him up twice that day, right? October the 31st. And she even stated, I noted no change or differences in Stephen. So it's rather remarkable that he kept his cool and composure and didn't show any signs that he had committed anything nefarious.
You know, just to add to what you said, Dr. Silkman, there's a couple things. Number one, it wasn't a normal time for Stephen's life, though. He was watching these depositions on a regular basis. That's not exactly a normal part of your life when you're going and you're watching these law enforcement right in front of you, and this is the narrative that's playing out in his life, right?
Correct.
I don't even know if there was a normal time for Stephen in these 3 years of freedom that he had. Had he really settled into anything? That's one of my reminders. And the other one is that if you believe the state's case, that means that Teresa Halbach's remains are smoldering right around the corner from the garage, right behind this van, as these reporters are kind of tromping around in the yard, getting pictures of this van, setting up shots, spending time there. There's other people in the area, and they don't report a strange smell. They don't report anything that you would think would come along, just because, not to get too just, into it, but remains tend to smell horribly. Anyone who's ever smelled that will never forget it.
And don't forget, but not only about her remains, but also the RAV4 still on the property, right? So could you imagine if the news crew said, "Oh, do you mind if we just take a drive around your property, just to have a look at the vehicles?" So Stephen didn't act nervous or didn't act anything different. And you're correct, Jeff. the very two next people that were going to be deposed were both Kacerik and Vogel, the big boys, right? So yeah, Stephen had a lot on his mind at that time.
And to toss one more thing on top of it that made it abnormal for Stephen was his girlfriend, Jody Stokowski, was in jail for drunk driving. So that's certainly wasn't normal for him.
This is very hard to take. We love her a lot. We miss her very much. It's just very odd that we didn't hear from her for the last 2 days when she didn't return calls, you know. We're hoping for the best. If she's out there, we want her home. You know, we want to know what happened to her.
From what we understand, she made all 3 stops. And after the 3rd stop is where she stopped answering the phone, or she stopped making calls. She hadn't listened to any voicemail messages after that. She didn't make any credit card transactions. So we don't know what happened after that.
How are you holding up?
I mean, the grieving process, could last days, could last weeks, could last years. Hopefully we find answers as soon as possible so we can, begin to hopefully, move on, hopefully with Teresa still in our life.
All those small towns, even St. Nazianz, Marytown, Chilton, New Holstein, Kiel. But basically, we're looking at any public place, bars, restaurants, gas stations, grocery stores, post offices, banks, any place you can think of, any place that's going to allow you to put the posters up.
And if anybody knows like Manitowoc, Two Rivers kind of area, if you know it, that would be best to send you guys there. Like,
if you do find anything, say you find the truck, say you talk to somebody that has seen her or made contact or knows whereabouts or anything, don't touch anything. Make sure, it's very important, I guess. Don't touch anything. Get a hold of either the detective or dispatch in Chilton and just tell them you're really concerned and you found this, and they can take care of getting a hold of who you need to.
Jeff, can I make a comment? What the hell is her ex-boyfriend and her roommate being involved in any form of search and rescue? In a normal investigation, they're the ones that come under scrutiny immediately, right? You want to question them, and you certainly don't want anyone that's close to Teresa Halbach, especially an ex-boyfriend or a roommate, being involved in any type of search and discovery. And secondly, isn't it remarkable the foreshadowing by Ryan Hilligus, who talks about if you find her truck, don't touch anything, get in contact with the detective, which is exactly what Pam of God found. It's almost like a foreshadowing.
Except you'll notice, Dr. Silkman, that he said get a hold of the dispatcher, but there was one person who showed up to that search party late who he gave Pagel's number to. Can we guess who that was?
Yeah. Pam of God. Oh, God.
Yeah. On the first guess, you got it. How's that possible? You're such a good guesser.
Yep.
The light is shining down on Silkman. I just was going to say basically what Silkman said in terms of the foreshadowing. How ironic that he's like, if you find anything and you're worried, call in, don't touch anything. He was giving him a step-by-step guide of what to do, and that's exactly what happens. The other thing is, I agree with Dr. Silkman, like he knew I would. It is, these two blokes should not have been leading any kind of search parties or being in a search party when they, especially for me at this stage, I don't think they even knew Ryan was an ex. They just knew that Scott was the roommate. And for me, the roommate should have been POI straight away, because it's a male that she lives with. He is a POI straight away. which is person of interest for people that
Well,
don't
and, it's one
understand.
thing that I was going to bring up actually about the dynamic between that team. We see here in the documentary that Scott is actually the one who's saying, "Oh no, you should go here," and he hands the flyer. I mean, we just saw it, and he hands the flyer where he's kind of making decisions about which group should go which direction. And a lot of times we get caught up and we think that Ryan is just this only central figure, but they're both involved in this kind of like planning. Now Ryan takes it a step further, and we'll see that. But that's something that I picked up watching this again as I'm going, well, Scott's actually in there. He is doing stuff.
There is
and it's
also what I wanted to add in here from what we're learning from these calls, these new calls that have been released by Foul Play, which were obtained by Rookie, which again, hats off to Rookie. Thank you very much. The cops didn't actually put this search together. There's actually a call we hear that they're actually talking about it, and they don't seem very enthusiastic about it. They're like, yeah, the family are putting a search together. They had nothing to do with it. It's not that they don't say that they don't approve of it, but they don't seem to want to have anything to do with it. You hear that very clearly on this call. The second thing is we've also just heard a new call where someone brings up Scott from watching this. They said, oh, did you see the roommate? He was acting quite sketchy. So they also were watching. I just wanted to like bring that in. So when I talked to you before about Stephen's interview on the news and what was shown in interpretation, it was also noted that Scott was interpreted by the cops that he was acting odd, because we also hear that in one of the new recent calls. So I just wanted to touch base on those little things that we see here. Again, it also comes back to a bit of controversy because we've seen that image of Ryan a lot of times shared throughout the community for a lot of years, where he's crouched down, he's using his hands, and people have stopped it, screenshotted it, zoomed it, and have claimed that there appears to be scratches on his back of his hand. He claims
going
it was
there already.
writing.
Oh my gosh.
He's claiming that it's writing. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think you have a definitive answer. I don't think any picture is clear enough. I think it's all speculation. I don't know. But yeah, I just wanted to touch base on that image because we saw that image, and that image has been used throughout the community a lot.
Yeah. So if I could talk a little bit about what Kelly just said, I think the the posture that the police took was very important to them because first of all, I mean there's a call, and there was even a call before Rookie's calls, but from the original original batch that was released. Well, let me just put it this way: if that search had been sanctioned or organized or promoted by the police, then it's arguable that anything that was found by that search, which is independent of the police, would have been deemed, not valid evidence. They have to be very careful. Like if the police organize a search, we're telling them where to go, what to do, then all of a sudden they're agents of the state and they need a warrant to be able to do it. It was very important that Pam of God got permission from Earl Avery to go on the salvage yard, because that way it's a citizen search, and she's therefore a how'd they put it in the calls, an anonymous tip, right? If she's an agent of the state, that's something completely different. But isn't it interesting that Ryan Hilligus is giving them police-like orders? So he obviously had spoken to some of the police. I'm not sure, for example, that a citizen searcher, I don't think I would be, maybe now, but maybe not before I was doing stuff on this case, would be smart enough to know that to tell anybody, don't touch things. If I was looking for a friend of mine and I found their car, I'd be like smashing a window to get it. You know what I mean? I wouldn't be smart enough to say, don't touch, So who told him to say that? Don't touch anything. Call the dispatch right away. He didn't think of that himself. So
He says apparently this is really important, as if that he's relaying a message. I mean, the way he says it, we can replay it, but I think you get the point where he's just apparently it's really important. So the way he's saying it is, someone told me, the cops told me, if you find anything, don't touch it. But yeah, okay. Any
The
anything
other,
else?
the other thing, of course, is what Michael Horbach said. He goes, after the third stop, her phone stopped working. So interesting that he knew already what Teresa had been doing that particular day. But it's also interesting that he made the comment when he said after the third stop. Now, after the third stop, does that mean was the third stop the Avery salvage yard, or was it the Zipper's residence? Interesting, because if you have a look later on, we'll see Ryan Hilligus absolutely focused on the Avery salvage yard. And I remember that Ken Kratz even made the comment, oh, so, you're thinking like a detective. You're looking at the last place that she stopped at. Ha, ha, ha. And you're thinking to yourself, for a start, Ryan Hilligus is a person of interest. And I think Kelly will agree with me, right? And yet, Ryan Hilligus is in her phone records, listening to her calls. This is illegal, by the way. You can't just simply go into someone's voice messages without their permission. And he's organizing a search party, and boom, on Saturday morning, Pam of God just happens to turn up, and he gives her all the material required to find and report the RAV. Truly astounding piece of detective work by Ryan Hilligus. Put him on the payroll.
That's right.
I was gonna say, he's going to do better than most.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just curious. Asking Kelly a question. Because I just would like a woman's perspective on this. What do you make of the fact that he moved into that house? Temporarily.
I will admit that when I first heard it, I was like, WTF, like seriously, creepy. He's going into her space, weird as hell. But then when I started to really look into it, because clearly I think everyone's gone down the Ryan Hilligus done it path, especially after making a murderer. When I really looked into it, I don't know, is it weird? Is it not? I can see it from both ends now. I can see it as he moved in because it was easier for support and to be around when things were going down, to keep in the loop. But in terms of that, it's still odd. Did he move into? Do we know whether he moved in? Like, where was he staying? Was it her room? Was it the lounge? Was it a spare room?
That's my question. What does move in mean? Like crashing on the couch, on the couch for a couple nights, or like bringing a bunch of stuff over and filling dresser drawers? Like, what does move in? What does that mean? That's my only question.
Isn't he the one that when Lemieux came over, showed her all the places where Teresa's stuff was, and the dresser and the
underwear,
the famous velvet box.
Yep, and also
right.
Keep going, guys.
No, that was him. Yeah, that's just creepy to me. Creeps me right out.
It is creepy. It depends on if it. Well, I look at it like this. It's creepy if he did it, but if he didn't, he has got nothing to do with her disappearance and death. Then it means nothing. It just, he was there because it was convenient, helpful. I get the impression that he was just overcompensating because he wanted to be the hero. I think he just wanted to be in it, inserted himself in it. He wanted to be the involved, the curiosity. I don't think Ryan had anything to do with Teresa's death. So I don't see it as creepy anymore because of that. Because I don't see a motive to why it would be creepy if he hadn't had anything to do with it. But that's obviously my opinion. As a woman, if I found out he was sleeping in her room while she was missing, oh, hell no. But if he's crashing on the lounge so he can be involved and in the know, then I can see that. I can see where that's possible. He's there for his mate. He's there. He's going through all these search parties. He's put himself right in the middle. You wouldn't want to be, at home, because if there's a development, he wants to be there. He wants to be in that moment when things happen.
I agree with Kelly, but look, come on. This is a missing persons case, right? And Kelly and others will tell you she's spoken to Investigator T. We all know that the first 48 hours is very, very important. To make sure that you're doing a proper investigation, you want to look at all potential people of interest, right? Ryan Hilligus is on the top of your list. He's an ex-boyfriend, right? Same with the roommate. You want to take him right out of the equation to ensure that you have no conflicts of interest. Both Ryan Hilligus, now I'm not saying or accusing either of them of doing anything nefarious to Teresa Hallbach. However, they are both prowling around in the victim's house and going through her belongings and her personal phone records, which means that potentially you're polluting and potentially changing any important forensic evidence and clues. Don't you think it would have actually been better for them both to be taken right out of the equation? I mean, did the MTSO or Calumet run out of police officers or detectives to look at this case? Did they actually need citizens to now doing a search party? Really?
I mean, statistically, it's the males that you know in your life as a woman that's the cause of some type of violent event like this, and it's a very huge number. I think it's in the 80 or 90% of the time it turns out to be the husband or the boyfriend. And
that's right, Jeff. I'm right there with you. The statistics say, look at the ex-boyfriend. I mean, it's not a tough one.
But the ultimate question is this, right? Why is it that people think Stephen Avery was a psychopath when he was interviewed by that lady? And here we have Ryan Hilligus in all his glory, and no one's got any form of suspicion against him. And he had a direct connection with Teresa Hallbach. This is an ex-boyfriend, right? An ex-boyfriend.
But they didn't know that at the time. You got to remember,
he
wasn't forthcoming with that. That didn't come up till later in the investigation.
Sure, but we know that when they were questioned, they weren't even questioned in a separate room. And in fact, it never even crossed his mind that he was ever considered a suspect. You've got a person who's going through someone's phone records, right? If I went up to one of you guys and rifled through your phone records, I would be in serious, serious trouble. Both her brother and Ryan Hilligus, and likely others, listen to personal messages. It makes you ask the question, how long has Ryan Hilligus been going through Teresa's personal messages, right? No one guesses a password like he did. He even had a wry smile on his face during the trial. Now, I'm not saying he did anything nefarious. I'm saying if you are looking at this as a detective, you want to make sure that you do the investigation properly. You can't have anyone trampling through the potential victim's home, rifling through her personal gear. I don't know what you guys think, but I think that's wrong.
I want to again touch base on this 48. The first 48 hours, they usually work from the inside out. And with any criminal show you watch, they will always say the victimology starts the moment you have a missing person. But the victimology isn't just like, it's their risk factors. It's what they were doing. Do they live a high risk life? Are they, what are they drug dealers? Are they prostitutes? Like, what do they do in their world that puts them potentially as a victim? When you go back like I did and you break down the first 48, I get what you guys are saying. But the thing is, Ryan actually doesn't fit into it because, one, they didn't become aware of his relationship with her straight away. Secondly, it came very apparent for everyone and every detective that she never made it home that day. That in the first 48 hours, they worked backwards. They went from the last places she was and was closing it in from there. And they made a determination very quickly that every witness and everywhere that they went and the phone tower pings and everything, that she didn't get far from her last appointment, whether that was, again, Zipper's or Stephen Avery's. That is her victimology. Her victimology isn't the ones closer to her. And just to touch base, I did do a Denny Line suspect tip-off list. Ryan never gets mentioned, so no one could have been too worried about him from any family or friends watching. He is the only person in her little world, really, that doesn't actually get brought up. The guy that she was saying, Bradley, gets brought up by a few of her friends. And I find that, and that's part of a victimology, because who knows you more than a lot of people? Friends and family. When you're, especially as a woman, if you've got a problem with a guy, you vent to another friend and you sit and go, oh my God, he is such a pain in the ass. Ryan doesn't come up. In fact, we have emails from a friend saying, oh, maybe there's, Teresa's talking about Ryan going, I can't believe I was in love with him. I know he's still looking at me. I saw him looking at me the other day. And then someone wrote to her back saying, oh, maybe there's a future with Ryan. So no one was worried about Ryan because Teresa was still bringing him up. When you look at the phone list, they were still contacting each other. So it doesn't look like there's bad blood. In fact, Teresa called him as much as he called her. So I can see where you guys are coming from, but in terms of her victimology, he doesn't sit in there in the first 48. He just doesn't. And I will make us, I think we've all talked about it, we're going to do a special little podcast on the side where I break down the first 48, because when we get to the end, I can't wait for you all to hear how this case, one, turns, and two, the duration. It will trip you out. When you hear it out loud, and I told the gentleman behind the scenes a week ago, they were like, wow, when you put it into perspective like that, that is nuts. It's either really good police work or something was driven for it to become such a conclusion so quickly. So I just wanted to touch base on that.
If you do want to go down the Ryan Hilligus rabbit hole, Mystic Jynx has done a series of videos, Riddle Me This, Ryan Hilligus, and that would be probably the most comprehensive way to look at, if you want to go down this not necessarily rabbit hole, but this Ryan is a suspect kind of thing. And we see that more. And KZ went through her motions on it. She went through her paces on it. And not to get too far ahead of us, but there's a difference, and I just keep reminding everybody, there's a difference between what can be brought into a court of law and the truth. And we'll hit that theme, I think, many more times as we talk about the court case moving forward.
You're really concerned and you found this, and they can take care of getting a hold of who we need to.
I don't know what to hope. I don't know if you want to find a vehicle and, she's there. I don't know if you want to find nothing and hope that
she's somewhere still alive. You know, we don't know what to. I don't know what to hope.
Hi, this is Pam Storm. I'm on the search for Teresa Hulbeck, and we have found a RAV4.
Is there any license plates on it?
No plates on it, but it's a little covered up. It's weird. It's covered up.
Okay. Can you get to the front of the car?
Yeah, I will. I can't find a VIN number. Is that okay if I go in the car?
No, do not go in the car. Do not touch the car.
Yeah.
Stay on the outside of the car. Go over to the front on the driver's side.
Okay, now hang on. The last four digits, 3044.
Okay, where are you?
Is that the number?
Where are you?
No, you're going to tell me if this is the car.
Okay, stop. I can't tell you anything. Where are you?
I'm at Avery Salvage.
Okay, busy in custody. Negative. Nothing yet.
Jones, can you do me one favor? Can you please rewind that just for a quick second? Something just like literally red flagged me. I just want to make sure I heard it correctly. I want to hear her say just before when she calls, just put it back to the beginning where Pam calls in for me, please, and I'll address it when I get to it.
Hi, this is Pam Storm. I'm on the search for Teresa Hulbeck, and we have found a RAV4.
Is there any license plates on it?
No plates on it, but it's a little covered up. It's weird. It's covered up.
Okay. Can you get to the front of the car?
Yeah, I will. I can't find a VIN number. Is that okay if I go in the car?
No, do not go in the car. Do not touch the car.
Stop.
Stay on the outside of the
She says, and I quote, "Is it okay if I go inside the car?" Did you guys all hear that?
Yes.
Sure did.
The problem is, in all her testimony, how could she go in the fucking car when she'd already tried it and she claimed it was locked? Why would she be asking if she can go in the car? She shouldn't know. Why would she want to go in the car? She, in all her testimony, her and Nicole had already tried getting into it. Am I wrong? They used
before they called.
Well, then it makes it worse that she was trying to do it after she'd been told to leave it alone. So why is she asking to go into the car if she knows the car's already locked? Can I go into the car? No, don't go in the car. Pam, what is it? Did you try getting in it after? You were advised not to? Or did you try to get into the car before this phone call? And
Why would you ask?
You've already known it's locked. You can't get in. So how are you going to get into it? I just heard that and I was like, hang on a minute. You know the car's locked. That's the biggest thing of this whole RAV thing. The car is locked. Who locked the RAV and why would you lock the RAV? Yet here she is wanting to get into it. But why? She knows it's locked. Her and her daughter had just gone around with tissues. Well, it depends. One of them was a tissue. One was
Nicole,
a sleeve.
yeah. The daughter
Nicole,
Nicole.
and trying to get into the doors and they're all locked. And that's the whole basis of the RAV is no one went in the RAV to plant blood because it was locked and we had to get a locksmith in to open it up. So I just heard that and I was like, what the hell? I've never heard it like that before. If she knows the RAV is locked, why is she asking to get into it? And if she didn't try until after the fact, why the hell is she trying to get into a car that she's been told, step away, do not go towards it?
Yeah, no, I agree that it's very odd that she did try. She had already tried because she admits that in the pre-trial. One of them was a sleeve, I think you're right. One of them was a tissue. I thought it was her daughter with the tissue. So if they've tried it, they've tried it. Why is she asking if she can go in? Does she know how to? Is she a locksmith or something?
And they tried all the doors, apparently, according to the testimonies. They tried all the doors, and all the doors was locked. What I found very interesting was that the very first thing that we get said was, are there number plates? That's the first thing he said. He didn't say, do you see Teresa? Is there a body? The first thing he said was, are there
Well, that's a
number
good point. Can you look in the windows? Is there anything around it? Do
Yep.
you see anything? Is there blood? Is there
Yep.
any indication of a struggle? Just
Yep.
is it the plates?
Yep. Plates come up first.
We're looking for Teresa at this point, right? We're not looking for license plates. We're looking for a person. Yeah, not just a car.
Correct. And not only
Or
that.
were we? Or were we?
Or were we?
Yep. And what about Pam Sturm saying it's covered up, and she almost gives a chuckle. You know, she's playing a game. Did I find the RAV? Tell me, did I find the RAV? And she even chuckles. That's truly remarkable.
Yeah, it's just incredible the circumstances that led her there. She comes last to the search party. I think that the footage that we saw in the previous segment actually took place on the night on Friday night, if I'm not mistaken, where he organized some of the searchers and gave them assignments to go, and they went about their searches on Saturday. Some of them met there, and others went straight to their searches on Saturday morning. But Pam of God shows up on Saturday morning. She shows up late, and not only does she get Pagel's number, but she gets a camera. The only one who gets a camera.
Yep.
Let me ask you a question. Did you give a camera to anyone else in the search team there, Ryan?
That would be no.
That's a big no.
Oh, so you only gave a camera to the one person that ultimately found the RAV4. I mean, not to get ahead of ourselves again, I'm sorry, but that's where we're going, you know?
If you read her testimony, though, in pre-trial or trial, she takes it all on the chin. She is the one that says, I asked him because I originally had it and I was going to bring it all. And when I got there, I realized I left it behind. I had seen that he had them. So I asked him if while he left, I could use his because I no longer had it. So she actually takes the full, she takes it on the chin and says, he didn't just give it to me. He didn't single me out and go, here. She claimed she asked for it.
If there was something going on, do you think she'd admit it, though? And that's the thing. I mean, you can't necessarily count on somebody. If there is something going on, she's not going to be truthful about that.
They blocked off about a 4-mile stretch of the highway that surrounds the Stephen Avery home. And earlier, hazmat vehicles also arrived on the scene, as well as the Great Lakes Canine Search and Rescue.
It's bullshit that they can go and search our house and nobody there. Well, yeah, they got the whole yard tore apart. Do they? Yeah, the whole shit. I'm scared. Yeah, me too. Well, not scared, just worried. Yeah.
What's the status of Stephen Avery? Is he a suspect at this time, person of interest?
Everybody is a person of interest at this particular time. Stephen Avery is no more a suspect or a person of interest than anybody else.
Thank you.
What a lying asshole.
Well, we just heard it. We just heard the dispatch recording.
Yeah.
Did we get him yet? Do we have anything other than the car? Is he in custody yet? And then you hear Jerry Pagel. Oh, he's not even. Why would he be his name wouldn't come up any more than anyone else's.
Yeah. Pagel knows a lot of shit. In fact, it was Pagel that was in the aeroplane on November the 4th looking for the RAV4. And no one found a RAV4 on the property. Now, doesn't that strike you rather odd that Pagel would make a comment that everyone's a suspect? And he was in the aeroplane one day before looking for that RAV4, And then suddenly, Pam of God finds the RAV4. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but isn't Pam of God a distant cousin to Sheriff Pagel?
Yeah.
Yeah, and not
So
only
Teresa.
that.
So is Teresa.
Yeah, and Pam of God is also a cousin to Teresa Horbach. So, wow, talk about keeping it in the family. But what is remarkable is that Pagel, Dan outright said everyone is a suspect at this stage. That's truly mind-blowing, guys.
And just the bias just shines right through in the dispatch call. Do we have him in custody yet?
Yeah, that's Dennis Jacobs. Is that correct?
Correct. Yep.
Yep. So here we have another Nostradamus moment, right? That's what I call them now, Nostradamus moments. How people have got this forewarning and foreshadowing of events yet to unfold. And Dennis Jacobs, I think, read out the script too early. You know what I mean? He let the cat out of the bag too early. This is before any forensic evidence has been gathered, before any blood has been analyzed. And they're already asking, is Stephen Avery in custody yet? That's truly remarkable, guys.
And then public statements to completely contradict that.
Shameful.
Everything is aimed at the Avery compound. Do you have any other large-scale place that's being investigated besides the Avery compound?
I will not disclose that information.
You know, there's been speculation around who has access to the yard. Do you think your two brothers could have had anything to do with this?
No, not at all. What, anybody can go down the road at nighttime and when everybody's sleeping and then just drive in. My brother ain't gonna hear nothing.
So who do you think did something with her?
I got no idea. If the county did something or whatever and trying to plant evidence on me or something, I don't know. I won't put nothing past the county.
To avoid any appearance whatsoever of any impropriety, I made the decision to seek the appointment of Kent Kratz, Calumet County District Attorney, as special prosecutor in this case.
What is your response to Mr. Avery's comment?
You know, I think we got to make the comment a little bit about our friend there, Mark Rohr, who we had covered extensively in past episodes. And was that Rohr? Yeah. And he was deposed.
Yes, he was.
And we keep seeing the same cast of characters. And so here's the thing. He sits there and says, I made the decision. The decision shouldn't have been his on who to pick. That's why I wanted to stop it before we even get into Ken Kratz, because now it's just a whole different story. Now we're really taking a turn here with Mr. Ken Kratz.
Well,
but it's important where that this stems from, right? When you have someone that's been deposed, he's choosing who the prosecutor is going to be.
That's correct. Mark Rohr handballed it off very, very quickly to Mr. Kratz, the special prosecutor.
Yeah, and can we also add that, you know, in their attempt to relieve an appearance of impropriety, that's about where it stopped, right? They said they're going to do a lot of other things that they just never did, and the impropriety continued, right? Let's just say.
Right, they got rid of the appearance of impropriety. It's another embedded confession, right? We didn't get rid of the impropriety. We just got rid of the appearance of impropriety.
Yeah, they didn't do that, at least truthfully, right?
I think the truth is it was business as usual, right? If you think about it, there were plenty of MTSO officers all over the salvage yard. Nothing had changed, guys. This is just lip service by Mr. Kratz.
And if we take a look at Mr. Kratz's face at this moment, put yourself in his position. A woman has gone missing. They haven't found her. They fear her, that maybe something horrible has happened to her. He sits down in front of the media and gives them a big smile from ear to ear. He's excited to be here. You should be excited to be here.
Looks like the cat that ate the canary, right?
There you go.
Yep. And he said he doesn't like the limelight. Nothing can be further from the truth.
Well, we know that he had higher political aspirations. So there's nothing better to catapult your political career than a major case like this.
Yep, missed 100% correct, Big Jeff. Kratz thought that this case was going to launch him into the stratosphere.
They launched him all right.
Yeah, it wasn't the
And
stratosphere.
that Manitowoc County might be trying to pull one over on him.
Yeah, that I'm happy to talk about. That's something that, again, District Attorney Rohr and Judge Fox and really the Manitowoc Sheriff's Department and other law enforcement community was very sensitive to any appearance at all of conflict, not just an actual conflict, but any appearance of conflict. I think, again, talking about District Attorney Rohr, the foresight that he had to bring in another agency, a law enforcement agency like Calumet County, another prosecutor like the Calumet County District Attorney, was meant to do just that, to make sure that there couldn't even be those kind of allegations.
What a fucking crock.
They ain't finding nothing because there ain't nothing there. So why are they going to find anything? All I can think is they're trying to railroad me again.
Dear Mr. Avery, I would like to invite you here with this chair.
There's a hole in the floor right here. Be careful.
Okay. To a luncheon that the Wisconsin Innocence Project will be holding for exonerees from Wisconsin and surrounding states on November 19th of this year. The purpose of this luncheon will be to bring exonerees together to build a network and support group for each other. I don't think he's going to be able to make it.
Big Jeff, you want to go? You want to go first? I'm going to try and calm down first.
Can you? I mean, just the bias is showing. How stupid do you have to be saying that on camera? I think that's Wendy Baldwin, if I'm not mistaken, right?
I think so.
And what's that?
Or Bass.
Yes, I'm pretty sure it's Wendy. I could be wrong. Maybe the other one that Dr. Silkman mentioned, but just the audacity to be saying that on camera. You don't have a lick of evidence linking Stephen Avery to this, and just the assumption and the statements are just galling. Right, that he has no chance.
I agree 100%, Big Jeff, and this goes to show the inherent bias that the MTSO and other law enforcement had for Stephen Avery and his family. This is another encounter where people are shooting their mouth off before any forensic evidence comes to play. But notice the letter that she read about. It had to do with the Innocence Project. Isn't that remarkable? November the 1st, right? The RAV is found on November the 5th. And of course, who is the poster boy for the Innocence Project? None other than Stephen Avery. Isn't that remarkable, guys?
Big coincidence, for sure.
Take all those shoes in case you're having unsolved burglaries with impression.
They're really making it hard on me having to stop all the time. I just can't believe that that would be said. Now, if you were joking, how do you say that on a camera? How do you say that when you know you're being recorded as a law enforcement officer?
You don't think anybody's ever going to look at it.
That's right. People thought that that was going to be private and no one was ever going to look at it. But if I could just make the comment, I believe that comment, they're filming in Barb Yunder's house.
Yes.
I don't think that's Stephen Avery's bedroom.
This is making a murder editing because you hear her looking at Stephen Avery's letter and then it cuts to, it's actually Bobby's closet.
Bobby's, okay.
Yeah, so
Thanks.
that's,
I thought that was my first impression too. Thanks for clearing that up.
yeah, so this isn't Stephen. So it's gone from, it's been edited from going into Stephen's property. It's now into Barb's residence. And that looks like, for everyone else, I agree. It took me a while to ever figure it out that they're in two different areas. I always
So they're
assumed that
talking about the Dassey shoes.
they're talking about Dassey shoes. Yep.
So they're talking about setting up a Dassey, not setting up an Avery.
Well, they're being condescending, right?
Well, you got to remember Bobby Dassey now, even more now it's all coming out. He was actually a person of interest in the case very early on. A lot of us are trying to work out when and where he got dropped from that because he seems to be a part of it. A lot of us are considering that. I'm going to rephrase that because I don't want to speak on behalf of others. My opinion is if you follow the story and the narrative that we've got, maybe that's why Bobby said the things he did, because it sounds like he was a lot under a bit of pressure. It almost sounds like now, as it's coming along, that he was given the ultimatum. It's either you or your uncle, because you were both the last people to see her. Now we have comments like this being made. He was definitely a person of interest. So, I just thought that'd be something we need to touch base on. I just don't know when. I always considered that maybe they were originally going to go for a narrative where it was Bobby and Stephen, and then Brendan came along and kind of changed it. They didn't see it coming. No, I don't think anyone saw Brendan coming. He stepped into it, got messy.
Yeah, but actually, Kelly, I'm starting to have second thoughts about that because we've got a DCI report
on the 10th.
Fairly early on. I think it was November the 10th.
Yeah,
where Skolinski is directly saying to Brendan Dassey, you saw something in that fire. Skolinski was already accusing Brendan Dassey. So very, very early on. That's one day after, I think, when Bobby Dassey was interrogated on November the 9th. So it's pretty early on that Skolinski's pointing the finger at Brendan.
It's an odd one. Again, we don't know all the answers. I really don't know. I don't know where it started for someone and ended for the other because we just don't know. I agree that the DCI report on the 10th is very interesting because it is, Brendan brings up, I think, like a sexual nature in it, going or rape her or something on those lines. And that's the first we get that, see any kind of direction of this being a sexual nature crime. Again, the problem with DCI reports, the problem with all reports, they're interpreted, the interpretation of them. I could read it one way and think of it one way, and then you could read it and go, hang on, that's not how I perceived it, what it was saying. I think it is clear that, again, Brendan was there, or was it that they realized there that he could be manipulated? It was like a ground. And again, where was the line where it was established that Brendan was Stephen's alibi? Because where do we fit that into the timeline as well? We need to go back and play around with that and have a look at how it all falls into place.
In what universe do you wait 3 months or 4 months to start to impugn somebody's alibi? It's just. But in my mind, what happened to Brendan was he was a victim of the state's failing case against Stephen. And we can talk more about it when we get to Brendan. But I'll tell you, I have very strong opinions, and to me, it was his own interview November 6th is what really began the plot against Brendan.
Correct.
It got followed through, and yet another miracle happens right around his November, his March 1st false
interrogation. Yeah.
So it's
correct. Correct.
Yeah.
And don't forget it. I know we're not talking about Brendan now, but this is very, very important because it was Skolinski that told Detective O'Neill about the bus driver, and Brendan then changed his story twice. That put Brendan immediately on the radar, and again he was interviewed again or interrogated again on November the 10th by Skolinski himself. So, the other thing, of course, what detectives do, they go on a fishing expedition. They hang out a bit of bait and see what gets reeled in, right? Who takes the bite? So they're making up all these false accusations and basically gauging the reaction of the potential suspects. And it's interesting that when that lady interviewed Stephen Avery, right, next to the van, she goes, "What about your two brothers?" Now, notice it's all starting to cave in on the family because the interviewer obviously is thinking, yep, either Stephen did this or or either one of his brothers. So it's already becoming, the shark's already circling around the salvage yard immediately.
I think finally in the comment about the shoes is that for me, it does also support this idea that anyone associated with the Avery salvage yard, they're lower class. They don't matter. We could throw them under the bus. They're all, as they said. I wonder if we have any unsolved burglaries. Right? They're all criminals. And I think that also adds to that character issue that we've been talking about. That these folks have had false accusations leveled at them time and time again.
There we go. Can you over here a little bit? Perfect.
I ain't been home. They've been searching. How hard is it to put evidence in the house or on the property? They served the whole serve. They ought to give me the first time. How do I know he ain't got nothing to do with it this time? I don't know.
Have you continued to talk to Stephen Avery?
He is cooperating with the investigation.
Is it the rest of his family?
Yes, they are.
Do you yet know what the order of her appointments was and who she visited last?
We feel we are narrowing in on that.
Do you think Stephen Avery is the last person who saw her alive?
We feel we are narrowing in on that.
Tonight, the Averys say they feel like they've become the focus of this investigation and feel like police are calling them liars.
The entire Avery family is holed up in their Marinette County cabin right now, being told after 3 days they still cannot go home. Yet they say investigators won't tell them what's going on. Avery says he once again feels like a suspect and fears at any moment police could arrest him.
It all comes back and all memories and everything else in there to schedule me out again. And deep down it hurts.
100% of my hopes are with finding Teresa. We last heard she was alive on Monday afternoon, And until we hear otherwise, that's what we're going to believe. That's what we're going to pray.
Just praying that God is next to her. Please bring her home. That's all we want. Just bring her home. Please, somebody find her.
Did they find anything while you were out searching?
I'm not really going to comment on that, but if anything was found, we had proper authority and professionals take a look at it as they needed.
How many times were you on the site, man? You were there Saturday when they found the car, but how many other times were you on the site?
You're never.
I wasn't on the site. That's not true at all.
Did you get their mic? Were you part of on the site search?
No, the people. I mean, the original when we originally found the vehicle was a member of our search party.
It was a member of our search party.
Permission to go onto the site, but no one other than that has ever been on the Avery.
On the actual site, it's been crime scene and taped off, secured.
Can I make a comment here, Jeff? This is like a mother coming home and seeing her two young boys with chocolate all over their mouth and on their fingers. And the mother says, "Who's been in the cookie jar?" And both boys point to each other. That is the biggest lot of crock of shit I've ever seen. Right? And we know that Ryan Hilligus was on the salvage site. We've got the login records. We know he was on there.
That's right. This isn't editing, okay? No one edited that. This is a third party recording, straight up raw footage. No one's taking your words out of context. No one's flipping it around. This is what was said, and I don't know how anybody can watch that and not go, something's fishy.
Yep, they're looking at each other's facial and body clues and cues. They want to make sure they don't say the wrong thing.
The thing is, though, playing with a devil's advocate here, I agree that they had been on the property. We have logs that has them on the property, but at this stage, I used to think, the lights, Stephen's lights that he saw on the 3rd, and then the lights on the 4th, the dropout calls from Ryan. The thing is, they don't know at this stage that Stephen has even seen them. So that's not they're not covering that side of it because Stephen hasn't been interviewed yet and said, I saw lights on the 3rd, there was lights on the 4th. So they're not going there with that idea, at least. And the secondly is, I think if they were there, it must have been on a different time that isn't connected to the lights, because I don't know if I'll bring it up now. We'll do a separate thing for this one, but I've just done a real big breakdown on that timeline. And it's, for me, the lights, what I see, it's now been debunked that it could be Ryan or Scott on the 3rd at least. It also debunks almost law enforcement. So I'm kind of been asking people, do you think the lights are, significant to this case? Or do you think, and if you do you think it was the same people that were there on the 3rd as the 4th? Or do you think that maybe Stephen had just been visited by Colburn and he was a little bit paranoid, so when he was seeing a light, he just was like, what the hell's going on? And it's kind of just fried him out a little bit. But yeah, I just wanted to touch base on that. So when we hear them saying this little, I haven't been on the salvage yard, what part of it are they referring to? Because they didn't know at this stage that the lights weren't a part of this yet. They're not getting accused of being a part of the lights. They're not getting accused of being on the property, planting cars at this stage. So what would they be covering then? You kind of got to go back.
Yeah,
because
I would say
very, very early stages. No, Stephen hasn't been interviewed yet. Hasn't come up about lights. Hasn't come up about people going into his property and them being on the property. So I'm just trying to get a feel of where we're thinking they're being called out and what part is it that they're not wanting to come forward with.
I personally don't think it has anything to do with the lights. You can easily explain the lights on November the 3rd. That's probably one of the Dassey boys or a family member just backing out their car. That's when Stephen saw the lights near his property, and he went back to check and he found nothing. That could have been non-nefarious. 100% agree. However, Chucky seeing the lights near his property, that's a bit of a head scratcher, because that's exactly where the crusher was. That's also the road that takes you up to where the RAV4 was ultimately found. I can't find an innocent explanation for the November the 4th lights that Chucky saw. The 3rd, yeah, you can easily work that one out. No, I'm going as far as to believe that both of these guys knew the RAV4 was there. That's what they're covering up. I believe they had foreknowledge that the RAV4 was there, and it goes hand in hand by the miraculous finding in 20 minutes with over 3,000 vehicles, Pam of God finding the RAV4. It all goes hand in hand.
And why do we call her Pam of God?
Why do we call her Pam of God?
That's exactly why we call her Pam of God, because
it's because when she's on the stand and they asked her how she did it in 20 minutes, she said it was God that led me there.
That's correct. God led her the way.
That's right. So this is the crucial moment. This is her character arc.
Correct. And
if you would.
And even Mr. Kratz had to actually stop her because of her overacting. It was so freaking obvious that Mr. Kratz had to stop her several times to calm down and basically tell her recollections. She was an actor. She was an actor in a play. Her job was to find the RAV4, call in the troops, and they all descended on the property. What did Dennis Jacobs say? Is Stephen Avery in custody? Have we got a body? So it's already this cannot be coincidental. It's too well worked out.
So I mean, if you want to pull on that thread a little bit, as our friend Kelly likes to do, you can say that they how do they know the RAV was there? Maybe they planted it there, or did they do an illegal search? And if they did an illegal search, then that discovery by Pam of God's out the window.
Exactly right.
Pam essentially whitewashed some illegal activity. In the United States of America, you can't do things like that. You cannot have you can't discover evidence under illegal circumstances and use it. Evidence is no good. You don't have the RAV, you don't have the search warrant.
That's exactly right, and that's why the very first thing that Pam of God was asked, did you get permission to go on that property? So, we don't know when that RAV4 got put there, but you could well be correct. A search party could have gone that night looking in the salvage yard, either looking for Teresa or looking for a RAV, and they found it, right? So they knew exactly where it was. That might explain the lights that Chucky saw on the 4th.
Been on the Avery.
On the actual site, it's been crime scene and taped off, secured.
Significant evidence has been discovered over the past 24 hours at the Avery salvage yard, and the evidence that we've collected is leading us to that of a human person.
We're all victims, and they just won't leave us alone. They just keep it up. It's, a person only can take so much. Right now, I got enough of them. They can go somewhere else and just leave us alone. Let us do our life and live normal.
Well, as I am sure everybody is aware, the scope of this investigation is now criminal in nature, and we are classifying it as a homicide investigation. It appears that an attempt was made to dispose of a body by an incendiary means. Pieces of human bone and teeth were found on the Avery property, and the key that was used to start Teresa Hallbuck's vehicle was found in Stephen Avery's bedroom. And again, I want to emphasize that the investigation revolves around one victim in this case, and that's Teresa Hallbuck. And I also want to emphasize that the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department's role in this investigation was to provide resources for us when they were needed, as we needed items on the property to conduct searches.
Can I just make a comment? what Pagel forgot to say was the MTSO provided us with all the key forensic evidence, not resources. Key fucking forensic pieces of evidence, Mr. Pagel.
Yeah. So just to let's name names, right? It was Link that comes into the room and says that there's a key here. Link and Coburn are in that room, obviously, the bedroom where the key was found. There was a Calumet officer with them. I think his name was Klarinsky.
Kacharski.
Kacharski, that's right. I'm sorry.
Kacharski. I actually did a video. I'll link it in the description of my little video about Kacharski. Go ahead.
And despite the fact that it was, Link and Link. There's a key down here while Coburn's like kneeling down next to the cabinet where the key is, and Kacharski's over there near the bed. Who do you think that they put on the evidence sheet that discovered the key? Right.
Kacharski.
So what kind of fucking idiots do they think we are? Right. They just and the same with the bones. Right. It was after so many days, right, that we haven't discussed Stephen's ferocious dog that was guarding the bird pit. But again, it's a Manitowoc officer that finally, after the fourth day, right, right behind Stephen's trailer. I'm looking for all this evidence, or I know it's Stephen Avery. Where don't I look? Right behind his friggin' trailer. Oh, I think there's a thing that looks like a human bone here. All of a sudden, it pops up out of nowhere. None of the dogs find it. It's just, point being, it's a Manitowoc officer that discovers this.
Yep, and we all know who was at Cuss Road, right? Mike Bushman.
Bushman, that's right. Bushman is the guy who actually arrested Avery in 1985.
That is correct.
As we needed items on the property to conduct searches, they provided that piece of equipment, and that's their role and their only role in this investigation.
I spoke with Stephen Avery's attorney by phone this afternoon. Walt Kelly told me he'd been unable to speak to Avery, didn't know where he was, and feared what might happen to him when he was questioned about Teresa Hallbuck's disappearance.
I spent the entire afternoon, including direct conversation with Sheriff Pagel, trying to locate my client. My colleague Steve Glynn was in an automobile in the area trying to find him. I think they purposefully have kept him away from us. I think they want to question him in our absence.
Where's Avery right now? Which jail, do you know?
I don't, I'm sorry.
I don't know which jail.
You don't know where Stephen Avery is?
We know where he is, but we are not releasing that information because we do not have contact.
He's entitled to.
Did you hear that little trail off? I think I might even want to play that again. We know where he is, but we're not going to disclose that because blah 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 blah, some nonsense. And the reporter says, he's entitled to his basic constitutional rights.
Except except Jeff, Kosarik did the same thing to him in 1985. Kosarik denied him his ability to do a phone call because Kosarik justified it by saying, if we allow Steve to ring his family, he's going to obtain an alibi. They did the same thing to him in 2005. They hid him from his own attorneys.
Avery right now in jail, you know?
I don't, I'm
I
sorry.
don't know which jail
You don't know where Stephen Avery is?
We know where he is, but we are not releasing that information because we do not have contact.
He's entitled to a hearing.
You know how this works. You can't beat the evidence.
Work with us a little.
If you
Think of your family.
Think of your family.
We've got the genesis, I believe, of the setup. You notice what we get said to him? You can't beat the evidence. Okay? Just keep that in the back of your mind, what we get confronted Stephen immediately with. And remember, it's November the 9th. They don't have any DNA data yet. Culhane hasn't processed it yet.
Person. If you made a mistake, they'll understand that.
Yeah, but if there's a crooked cop.
So you're telling me somebody planted the body?
I didn't do it.
Who did it?
I don't know.
Steve.
See how it's ironic. They're using like almost like the Reed technique here. You see it in the Chris Watts case where they give him an ultimatum, like not an ultimatum, like an alternative theory. We understand if it was an accident. You know, they're giving him an outlet, like for him to see if he'll roll with it. They throw him like bones to see if he'll grab them. You see it in Chris Watts. They're like, did maybe she hurt the children and then you feel like you had to do something, Chris? And then he saw that like, oh, I didn't think of that. Yes, that's what I'll do. And you see him roll with that. They're doing that to Stephen right now. We understand if it was an accident. It was an accident. It wasn't it, Stephen? Hoping he'll go, oh, okay, this could be a way out of this. Okay, yeah, it was. But he doesn't bite because he didn't do anything. But then you'll see that they keep doing it. They'll ask him another way and they slip in like all these other bones to see whether he'll bite. It's actually very strategic.
Yeah, and another thing that's worth discussing is he's actually not arrested yet. This is the interview. He gets arrested at the end of this interview. And the charge that he gets arrested on is felon in possession of a firearm, not murder. He's not arraigned on murder till later, but he needs to get arrested on November 9th because something very important was going to happen on November 10th, wasn't it?
Yep, Kosarik was just about to sit down and get deposed.
And he was going to have to say, he was going to have to explain to the world, how come he told Vogel not to F this one up, right? He was going to have to explain a whole bunch of decisions he made in 1985 under oath at the risk of getting sued. And all of a sudden, poof, man miracle number one.
Yeah.
The Kosarik definition just the need evaporates. And you hear in the recently released calls how the DA's office calls on in a frenzy,
in a panic. Yeah, and the important thing to realize here, guys, is that when the investigators went inside Stephen Avery's trailer, they saw the weapons. They never confiscated them the very first time. They were told to go back the day after and pick up the weapons. And guess who wrote up the warrant to get Stephen Avery arrested?
Was he sweaty?
Yeah, he was really sweaty. And the reason was that Ken Kratz felt it was an obligation to arrest a felon in possession of a weapon. Bullshit. They did it to get the warrant, to get the photographs, to get the DNA, to get everything from Stephen. But have a close listen to what we get says. Very, very important.
I don't know.
Steve, think of your family here.
I am thinking of my family.
No, you're not. You're thinking of yourself.
No.
You're thinking of yourself.
And we don't blame you for doing that. God damn it, yes. 17 years in prison for something you didn't freaking do.
I didn't do this one.
And we understand that.
You made a mistake.
No, I did
Steve,
not.
You made a mistake.
I didn't do that. How can I
So
make a mistake?
So you intentionally killed her. Is that what you're telling me?
No, I didn't. I didn't do
Then
nothing.
how did it happen? Explain to me how it happened.
I didn't
I would like to introduce two individuals who I feel have done a fantastic job in this investigation. Investigator Mark Wiegert from my office and Special Agent Tom Fossbender from the Department of Criminal Investigation.
You said yesterday and earlier in the week there's only one victim in this case. Can you explain what you said?
Sheriff Poggle said that. I've said that before, but go ahead, Sheriff.
Okay, there is only one victim in this matter, and that is Teresa Hallbuck. She is the individual who lost her life, and that is the one and only victim in this matter.
Can I just
I'll comment further. I don't have a problem with this.
Can I just make a comment? This is before any DNA tests have been done. This is before the testing of item BZ, and this is before Fassbender gets the pap smear as a DNA standard for Teresa Hallbuck. So they are immediately putting out there that Teresa Hallbuck is the victim. They're already seeding it in the mind of the population, of the public, that Stephen Avery has murdered Teresa Hallbuck straight from the get-go.
I've heard many reports and have seen images of a specific suspect, in this case now, Mr. Avery, on the various media, suggesting that, why are they looking at me? Why would I be asked questions about Teresa's death and disappearance? I hope with the DNA positive analysis and the other surrounding circumstances that question doesn't have to be asked anymore.
I know you're scared, Steve. I know
I'm
you're
not
scared.
scared.
Because you didn't mean to kill her. I don't think you meant to kill her.
No, I did not kill him.
This wasn't a planned thing.
No.
Did you plan it?
No.
Okay, I didn't think so. I didn't think you're that kind of a guy for meeting.
I
I
didn't
think
kill
what
him.
happened, you come out of prison for serving time for something you didn't even do.
I did not.
And it screws you up in the head, like it screws everybody up. They didn't give you any counseling. You said that before. They gave you no counseling.
I did not
The
kill
body
him.
is on your property. The key is in your bedroom. You know the key is there because you put the key there. That's the only way the key gets there.
No.
Yes, Steve. Yes, that's the fact.
There's just so much on there. Like, what body? There's never been a body, B-O-D-Y. There's difference between bone fragments, right? Am I mistaken in that?
Nope.
No, but what they're doing is they're challenging Stephen with they're throwing the kitchen sink at him in the hope that he'll break down, confess, admit that he did this, and everyone can walk out being a superhero. But it's pretty obvious he's denying everything, right? You look at his body language. He's not hiding anything. What I find absolutely reprehensible, these are two law enforcement officers, two seasoned investigators, and they have the gall to tell Stephen, you've been in prison for something you didn't do. It does things to your mind. Now, think about it. Did the state of Wisconsin do anything to rehabilitate Stephen to enter back into normal life, into normal society, to deal with the trauma of sitting in a cage for 12 extra years for something he never did? And these two dickheads have the gall to tell Stephen it does things to your mind being locked up in prison for something you didn't do. Absolutely mind-blowing. And now they're accusing this guy of murdering and butchering Teresa Hallbuck, knowing full well that he's in the middle of a civil lawsuit to prosecute the very people that put him in there.
So this is one of the questions. This is one of the questions that I had just to keep in the back of our minds. But as we move forward, how many of the people that were deposed are now playing a role in this investigation? Maybe we can keep a little sidetrack or count of when they show themselves. just to thread that in for you.
You can deny it all you want. The evidence will show that, okay? That's the way
The
it is.
evidence, the cops got the evidence.
Yeah.
Got
Two
all my
independent
evidence.
investigators that have never met you, two people who have never met you, have nothing against you. I know nothing about you.
No, you see, if somebody else plants that shit there, you ain't gonna see it.
Then why is your DNA there? Why is her blood in your house? How are they gonna get their blood in your house?
Lie.
How is her blood in my house? It can't be.
There's a lot going on here. Go ahead, Big Jeff.
What we should just do is count the lies. I mean, to me, it's not right that the police can lie to you during an interrogation like this.
Her blood was never discovered in his house, was it?
No. And as Dr. Silkman has pointed out, I don't believe that his blood. It's been determined that his blood is anywhere nefarious at. I think, as a matter of fact, don't they use a DNA swab from that very can of Mountain Dew that he's drinking from to get the DNA profile in the first place, or do they use CODIS, or where did they get the DNA sample that they used to confirm with the blood in the RAB? Was it from that can of soda that's right in front of Stephen, or from CODIS?
Well, if you have a look, here's the interesting thing. This is November the 9th. The search for the CODIS database doesn't occur until November the 10th. So therefore, they don't have any DNA results as yet. And when Culhane runs the DNA from, she does a DNA prep from the blood that's in a RAV, she puts the DNA into CODIS, and out comes Stephen Avery's name. That's November the 10th. So therefore, Wiegert doesn't know whose blood, whose DNA is in that RAV4.
How does your DNA get inside the
I used to
truck?
leave my house open all the time.
How does your DNA get inside of her truck?
My DNA ain't. That's because they got blood out of me. How much blood they got out of me? A lot of blood.
Steve.
They got a lot of blood out of me, that's sure.
Steve, come back to reality here.
I am.
No, you're not.
I did 18 years. You think I want to do any more?
As special prosecutor, I've also been asked to comment upon any possibility of tainted evidence or something along those lines. There was some mention in the media that this key in his bedroom could have been left or planted or something of the like. Now that Mr. Avery's DNA is found on that particular key, I was left to question whether or not people would have me believe that not only are they carrying around keys for Teresa's vehicle, but they're also carrying around vials of Mr. Avery's DNA with them, whether it's perspiration or whatever. It's absurd.
Now, who do you think has got access? Who do you think has got access to Stephen's genomic DNA?
How many guesses do I get?
You get one.
Would that be
Start with an S, SC, or the initials SC?
Well, the other thing is they're in his friggin' trailer, and his slippers are right there, and his toothbrush and everything else. So I mean, there's a lot. I think there's in the context of the trailer, I think you'd expect there to be a lot of his DNA around, and I would think that somebody with half an education would be able to figure out what to do with it if you really wanted to try and get DNA on it, aside from nefarious ways.
Correct. The important thing to realize is that Cherie Culhane had Stephen Avery's genomic DNA in 2003. They don't have to go hunting for it. She already had it in the laboratory.
Well, the other point, like just in the legal standpoint, and I'm not a lawyer, but he's talking about these things open to the press and saying these details about the case and how the case has been conducted right in front of the press. So a jury that would hear these, it would taint the jury pool. And this is just the first instance of him doing something borderline on that. And it gets worse.
The amount of prosecutional misconduct conducted by Kratz is legendary. He was basically doing the laboratory analysis and the conclusions to the case in an open forum. He's like doing a podcast with the media videotaping him.
Because DNA evidence from the suspect, Stephen Avery, was found on the key, and Mr. Avery's blood is found inside of Teresa Halbach's vehicle, it is no longer a question, at least in my mind as a special prosecutor in this case, who is responsible for the death of Teresa Halbach.
Hey, Steve, everybody's listening. What do you want to say today?
I'm listening.
What else do you want to say, Steven? We can't tell it without you.
You know, last time it took me 18 years.
I was still living in Wisconsin at this time, and this is the image that I remember of Stephen Avery. Just a real quick thing on the news of him in this jumpsuit right here, and the mittens, and they got him tied up. And forget a jury pool, just my own personal opinion. I remember seeing this and going, "Oh my God, this guy must be like a really bad dude for them to go to this extra length." And that was just my only recollection of the case prior to the documentary, was like this TV clip, or one of them similar with this jumpsuit.
It's that's a really good point you make. To me, it's all part of the show. Ken Kratz was all part of the show. Ken Kratz and Pagel knew that Stephen Avery was putting it out there very quick. Hey, I've been set up again. It's happened to me again. So hence, Pagel and also Kratz had to get on the front foot really, really quick and talk about all the evidence. Now, we get back to this fundamental issue that guilters and truthers need to address, and that's the blood in the RAV. You can forget about anything else in this case. Key, that can be easily planted. Cremains, that can be easily moved. Plates, RAV4, can be brought onto the property. We need to discuss, probably not now, but at some stage, we need to discuss how that blood got in the RAV that, according to Cherie Culhane, contains Stephen's genomic DNA. Everything else you can explain. It can be brought onto the property. But if we're talking about a planting scenario, someone either had Stephen Avery's blood or gave the impression that it was Stephen Avery's blood, right? Remember, this is a show, and Kratz is running a show, and they're displaying Stephen like he's Hannibal Lecter, a monster. And as you're right. You're looking at these images thinking, oh my God, this is the most dangerous person on the planet. He's the next Ed Gein.
I think it goes even worse than just his appearance. Didn't they at one point want to put an electrical?
They did.
They did put an electrical.
A stun belt.
Right. So they fitted him with a stun belt during his court appearances?
I believe that's the case.
They really didn't like Stephen.
They hated him. They absolutely hated him. So they had to counteract what he was telling the media. They're setting me up again. So they had to set him up and give the impression, who do you believe, the cops or this guy over here?
Yeah. So the way, when I hear the stuff about the blood of the RAV, it immediately makes me harken back to Jean Couché, because if they're going to set Stephen up, they're going to need like a whopper of a case against him, right? And
Correct.
They're going to need something as good as what he got off on, which is that DNA. And
Correct.
to me, there was somebody thinking about that, right? Somebody was thinking about right? Can DNA, has it been planted before? Yes. Was it in this case? I don't know. right?
Yeah. Correct.
But they were thinking about it. That's to me what that says about Couché. Couché's still alive at this point. And he's a deputy sheriff, right?
Correct.
So somebody was pushing those chess pieces of the guilt. Another thing the guilters like to ask is, if you think they did it, who did it, right? Who did it and how? To me, Couché was thinking about it, and his embedded confession that it was thinking about it happened, on that date that we saw back in the beginning of the podcast, where he gives his deposition. He is thinking about it. Sorry, Kel, go ahead.
I wanted to say, Kel, did you? We saw the first introduction of the blood in the RAV. Did you have anything to add to that now? Are we going to have to make another video for it? Do you have? Because I know it's.
Yeah. So
You want to dig into that a little bit?
All I was going to say for now, because it's so complex, is
Sure.
the irony is it was DNA that got him out, and now it's DNA that is keeping him in. Somebody who, regardless, if we're, like Dr. Silkman said, if we're going to go through this, the blood is the case. I've been on this for so long now. I've been saying to everyone, the blood is the case, because like Silkman said, you can go along to all the rest of the pieces of evidence, and they can become reasonable. They can have a sense of reasonable doubt if you argue it enough. You talk about item FL, and you can talk about how it was contaminated with sherry, and how do they get Teresa's on there, and the months later, and then you can go on about the key getting planted. Everything else can be created reasonable doubt. But you got that blood, and that blood just, if someone planted it, someone had to have understood the real importance of it, what it really meant. Like, I'm going to just say it. For me, it's hard to accept it came from the sink because of Bobby Dassey. What 19-year-old knows the basics of physics? Because with blood, you can't just pick it up in a dropper and go and drop it somewhere without it being pre-planned. It takes, a certain amount of understanding of how coagulation works, the cycle of your blood. It goes through, it's got a 5-stage of, coagulation till you get to your driedness. So it's not like someone was just saw an opportunity and went, oh, he's bleeding, this is my chance. You've got to have pre-thought about it. And that's what Big Jeff just said. If someone was been already thinking about it, a 19-year-old picking up blood going, I'm going to go put it in that car and that's going to link my uncle there. Oh, I've done it. Mic drop. I'm free from this murder. No, it's not that simple. You don't just pick it up and drop it without realizing, one, you're risking every time you go back to that RAV, whether it's to move it, to plant something in it, to get something out of it, you are putting, it starts from 40%. The statistics say from 40% up to 80%. Every time you touch a victim's property, if you're the perpetrator, it goes up percentage-wise that you are contaminating it yourself. You can add things to it, but what you also could be adding is yourself. Unless you're in a forensic bodysuit, you're eliminating that contact. You're putting yourself there just as much as you're putting that blood there. So, we see early in the investigation where they kept saying to Bobby, for example, will we find you on that or around that RAV? He's like, hell no. Excuse me. Hell no. I was not even near the RAV. Are you sure we're not going to find you in it? No, absolutely not. If he had done it and he had planted his uncle's blood, at that moment he would have realized the chances that he was going to be found in it, not because, he's planting like the RAV on the salvage yard. It's because if he put the blood there, he risked, because he had to have got in it or got like half of his body in it, touched it in one way or the other and put it in there. So the blood is so complex because for me, when I did my experiments, I came down to 3 conclusions. And I'm going to be honest with you, one of them's not favorable for Stephen Avery, but that is part of the case. You can't sit there and try to make all these excuses and not be just like, oh, okay, well, the last option is Stephen's blood is in the RAV because Stephen bled in it. Although none of us believe it, if any of us believed it, we wouldn't be here today. No one believes that, but it is a reality because it is so hard to work out how that blood got there unless you really understand what it means for the case and understand how it got there.
Well, I think it explains
really
the defense, right? It explains why they took that defense. Why it's like, no, the defense is the cops set him up, right? And so it does tie back to some level of logic, right?
It is. It's logic. And the thing is, Investigator T, in all my interviews I did with him, and still from this day I speak to him every day, he always says to me, always go back to the beginning. Always go back to what is said first at the very beginning, because it eliminates time to think, time to have influence, time to misinterpret things. You want to capture it when people are asked things first where they're off guard. They don't have time to come up with theories or come up with Stephen. His very first instinct, his very first thoughts were, I'm being set up again. The cops. You've got to also remember, he was also getting told from Tammy that she had heard from the grapevine that the cops planted the RAV. Do you guys remember that?
Yes.
That came up very, very early. He had already had that in the back of his mind. You actually hear him say that. Remember that he says it.
There's a Tawega.
Yeah, he says it to Tawega, and then you can see them turn. Now they're getting angry because now they know he's definitely going there with this. He's like, ask Tammy. They told me the cops bloody did it. So I always think that's really interesting in the beginning of the cases because, and when you speak to, when you listen to these phone calls, a lot of, Barb, for example, she's still screaming that Teresa's alive and it's a setup that she's involved. At that one stage, they all think that this is a setup. And now where we're at in the case, clearly that has changed. It's moved along and, Denny's have come into it and other evidence has kind of surfaced. But at the very beginning, this is what we had. The case is based on that blood. You can take away everything else. You can strip everything else. You can throw in any Denny you want. But the reality is right now in this case, for the court to take this serious, there has to be a bar that is reached on a forensic level. And Denny is not going to do it unless that Denny has the same forensic connection to what is already in the case with Stephen.
That's correct. You need to directly connect a Denny suspect to the RAV or to Teresa Hallbach, to the murder of Teresa Hallbach.
Yeah. And the problem we have right now...
I don't think so, but I think when you talk about Denny, you have to say means, motive, and opportunity. That's what a Denny suspect has to have. The thing is that in the United States, you can, if you can identify such a person with the means, motive, and opportunity, then you have a constitutional right to name that person as a Denny suspect, and much like Angela Sukowitz did in KZ's complaint, you're not allowed. You're not allowed to sort of come to the conclusion that, well, I really don't think at the end of the day this person had anything to do with it. Did they have the means, motive, and opportunity? Is the only question that you have to answer. It's not. That's the law, right? That's your constitutional right, is to be able to name somebody who the jury. So there is another person with a name that I can consider. That's irrespective of the fact of how good of a suspect Ryan is or Bobby is. The question is means, motive, and opportunity.
But the thing is, though, what counteracts that is you've got that, but does that take away? You could name Bobby as a person of interest right now and a Denny, but it doesn't take away Stephen Avery out of the case because
no, absolutely not. Absolutely.
So that's what I'm trying to say. Yes, legally they should have been able to introduce Denny's 100%. The legal right they should have, but the bar wouldn't have been high enough because they would have still came to the same conclusion. Your Denny's are great. They meet all three, but they're not the ones that have got the forensic evidence against them. He does. And that's the problem we have now. We're bypass trial. We're now trying to get a conviction overturned where the damage is locked in. So the problem is the state, she could lodge the Denny, and he does. He fits all the prongs right now. But I'm not going to be shocked if the state replies back going, that's cute, but your Denny, Bobby, for example, had his DNA tested and taken, yet he wasn't found on this RAV, yet you're claiming your witness saw him pushing it. You're then now saying that he went into the RAV to plant things. You're now saying he was doing all this thing, yet your client, your Denny isn't a part of it forensically. So what do you choose? I'm telling you, no way a judge is going to choose, a Denny has the prongs, but Stephen has, unfortunately, the prongs and a forensic connection. Planted or not, that's deep. That's what I'm trying to say about the blood. Someone knew how important that is to the case. It's not a matter of just planting blood.
Well,
Kelly,
sorry to interrupt. Let me tell you this. Let me ask you this. Who do you think knows the importance and how to do this setup? In your opinion, it's not Bobby Dassey.
It's not Bobby Dassey.
Because I agree, a source of blood could have been the sink, yes, but you needed the RAV4 immediately to get access to, correct? Because the blood, we know that the blood is in a liquefied form. Yes, there were blood crusts or blood flakes, no doubt about it. But we know that the blood that the state is saying belongs to Stephen Avery was in a liquefied form. It wasn't reconstituted blood. You could tell by looking at it, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. It's a solid blood.
Yes.
It's not rehydrated, and like you just said, people have got to understand this. And when I finally do this, release it, I cover all this. I show you guys all what rehydrated blood looks like. There is, to your eye, you can even see it.
Correct.
It's not the same. It's not, and the thing with the drops in the car, you can tell that it is liquid form, like you said, because it hasn't began the coagulation stages.
Correct.
Otherwise, you've seen those little, you get like little clots involved, and then the crust.
That's correct.
Becomes, it's liquid. The person that dropped it got it in liquid form, and
correct.
The turnover. Again, we'll go through this more when we get to that part, but agree, it was liquid form.
Yep. So my question to you is, and this is also bringing in Big Jeff too, who do you believe had the knowledge and experience to understand about blood, DNA, and the power of it to plant it?
Sherry Coleman.
Wow. Really? Yeah. Yeah. That's.
You know what? I'm going to just give a bit of a disclaimer here. With all the blood experiments I did, if she was, I'm not going to accuse her, but let's just put it out there. Let's say it all happened in the lab. You know what you can do if it just happened in the lab? You can cut out all the bullshit conspiracy in between, because
Yes,
you don't
you can.
need A, B, C, D to know about it. You just need her and
Correct.
someone in her ear to say, for fuck's sake, fix this now. You fucked up in 1985. He got out, clean it up. That's it. You only need two. Her and someone else. And the beautiful thing about it is, if it ever came out, she could turn around and go, oh, well, I was honest. There was mistakes being made in the lab. I contaminated. It was just a mix-up of the swabs. It was just a mix-up of the results, because I was processing the RAV and the Grand Dam on the same day.
At the same time. Yep. And guess what? She's got the letter and the note from the lead investigator, Tom Fassbender, who told her what, Big Jeff?
Put her in the garage. Put her in the house in the garage. Yeah.
There you go. The holy trifecta right there.
Yeah. Well, on the topic of the DNA, at some point, our good friend Ken is going to tell us that it's impossible to, it's impossible for Stephen to have made all forensic traces of himself disappear in the RAV, right?
Yes.
But there's only one DNA miracle worker on the planet who's capable of erasing the DNA of a rape and a murder in his own bedroom and garage, right? And that's that guy in stripes on the right. a brilliant forensic cleaner.
Oh, he's a guru. He's a guru and a clown at the same time.
He could do it for his bedroom and the garage, but he couldn't manage to wipe up that blood stain below the key in the RAV.
6 drops, guys.
My apologies, go Big Jeff. You were going.
I was just gonna say, please show me a picture of that blood stain prior to it being swabbed, so I can know that there's no evidence of sort of it being painted on there with a Q-tip or something like that. Can anybody show me that picture?
Nah.
There's
no in situ. There are no in situ pictures.
It's little things like that blow my mind. Like Groffy, right? He went in there. He claims he got in there, and he did a presumptive test when the RAV was opened. He did it on the ignition swab and the one at the back, I believe, and it came back that it was, blood. The problem is, here's the irony of it. He did things he wasn't meant to do, but did things. He did things that he wasn't meant to do, but didn't do things that he should have. He never had the right to do any testing on it, period. He wasn't.
Zero.
That wasn't his job. His job was a forensic photographer.
Yeah.
So all he was to do was photograph any kind of evidence in situ, but yet he didn't do that. He didn't take the basic standard of his job. Instead, he went and did things that were not in his scope to do in his practice. To me, that should have been highlighted as a break of chain of custody, because he has interfered with something that he shouldn't have even touched to begin with. That mind boggles me, man. Like, holy shit. That'd be like me. I'm not a doctor. That'd be like me going up to a patient and saying to them, I'm diagnosing you with stage 4 cancer. And yet but my job is not to do that. My job is to do the diagnostic coding of them. And I don't do my coding, but I tell them instead what they're dying of. Like, come on now.
So Groffy is already modifying forensic evidence. He's already altering forensic evidence. And to make matters worse, Culhane then comes along and swabs the same blood stain twice. Once for presumptive and once for DNA, which means that there are 3 swabs with a solution that have actually diluted the blood stain on the ignition switch, which means that what it looked like initially doesn't look like it now, which means we don't have an in situ photo. And that way, the state are coming up with all these wild-ass theories that the blood came from Stephen Avery's cut finger. Bullshit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, again, the blood's the case, and especially now, because you can have any Denny suspect. You can, and I guess the point of Denny is to create reasonable doubt that it could have been somebody else. And you can argue that to the point that the cows come home. You're not going to overturn it if you can't explain the blood, because I can't see, in my opinion, everyone, I can't see any judge going, I'm going to accept that a Denny is a better, a better piece of evidence than the actual blood evidence that we have found. All I wish in this case is for step one, if everyone goes to me, what would you have done? My step one, if I was KZ and if I ever get that RAV, and again, it goes back to even Beauty and Straying, if they had the opportunity. The first thing that should have been done in this case was ordered for some independent person to come in and take that blood swabs and test it for Stephen themselves.
Correct.
I know that's step one.
Correct.
That's
Standard.
it. That's all they would have had to do. Standard one. Anyone but Sherry Culhane and an independent person that is from somewhere else that comes back and goes, yes, I did do the swabbing, and yes, it's definitely Stephen's. And then you work from there. Then you go out from that bit. You don't even have that. You have to take Sherry's word that it's his blood in the RAV. And again,
That's correct.
I'm not saying it's not, because it probably is, because again, it goes into logic. It's a big risk factor to use someone else's blood, because then you have another Gregory Allen on your hands. But in saying that, we just don't know. That's going back to the very basics. That's all I would have asked, is someone else to confirm it's Stevens. Once you confirm it's Stevens, then you go, okay, how did it get in there and when? For me, it's when, because there's no way that blood had been sitting there for 6 days from the 31st.
No.
It's the cycle of it isn't in a 6-day frame, especially the blood drip. It still looks so raw and fresh.
Yep. If you're looking at a planting scenario, you're talking about the addition of the blood probably on the 5th or the 6th. That blood would have had to have been added fairly quickly to the RAV, because at the salvage yard, no one saw any blood in the RAV4. I'm not saying that it wasn't there, but no one noted any blood, including on the ignition switch. And there were investigators there that had torches, and Pam and Nicole looked inside the RAV4 when it was daylight. They were able to see personal items belonging to Teresa, but never noted any blood, right? And even Mike Horbach made the comment, oh, there was no signs of foul play within the RAV4, as in no obvious struggle, gunshot wounds, blood everywhere. The crime scene was very subtle. That's the important point there, guys. A very subtle crime scene.
I just want to say one last thing before we finish off this episode in terms of the blood. Excuse me. Oh my God, I'm almost losing my train of thought here. With the blood, though, a lot of people say to me, when would it have been planted? A lot of people still at this day think it would have had to have been in the RAV before the RAV was planted there. A lot of people think, no, it would have happened at the salvage yard. People are thinking it could have happened on the way to the lab. People are thinking it's happened on the lab, at the lab. And a lot of people are like, well, no, it can't be, the timeline. No one knew about his cut finger. When they would have known about his cut finger, rah, rah, rah. I just want to remind you all this one thing. You don't need a cut to bleed. You don't. They could have, let's say theoretically, let's say that their blood was already in the RAV. But this would mean, this is where it gets messy. This would mean that they would have had to have found it first. And they planted it in the RAV before they dumped it, or even if they had done it and they didn't even know that he bled from his finger, even on the day that they planted it, say on the 5th or 6th, whatever. You don't need to bleed through a wound. They had control of the narrative from the very beginning. They could have turned around and said, in a struggle with Teresa, she punched him in the nose and his nose was bleeding. And that's where the blood comes from. So I just want to I just wanted to put that in there, because everyone focuses on his finger, but that doesn't stop from them having that thought of putting blood there regardless, because you don't need that finger to have a blood source. They could have created a narrative where in a scuffle, he's been punched in the mouth, he got accidentally punched him in the nose, and his nose has bled and it was dripping, and he was using his finger to wipe it because your nose was dripping. Again, I just wanted to put it out there because a lot of people think that someone would have had to have been in the know about this finger bleeding.
They would have made the narrative fit.
They would have made the narrative fit no matter where, no matter what.
So if he had no cut, they would have found another alternative source. And you're correct. You could bleed from your mouth. You can bleed from your nose. No problems.
Using 6 weeks to prove my innocence. This time, I don't know how long.
What do you guys have to say about this episode 2? Because we finished episode 2. Or what do you have to say about what we saw today?
I thought it was a really good episode. I think it showed the strategy of the state and the prosecuting DA, what their way of thinking was, and that was to put out the forensic evidence, the analysis immediately, right? And I think the interrogation of Stephen Avery by Wiegert was very, very interesting. As Kelly said, it's your classic standard read technique. We'll give you a way out. We'll say it was an accident, right? Now, which is really interesting, of course, because if it was an accident, how does Stephen then explain, oh, well, I decided to chop her up and cremate her? Normally, if there's an accident, don't you call 911? So quite clearly, it was ludicrous. Absolutely ludicrous.
It's a really good point, Dr. Silkman. Thank you. Big Jeff, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, this episode is really the near the end of the crossroads of where the 1985 case meets the 2005 case. You can see. Well, look how a lot of people. So look how nervous Stephen Avery was in one of those segments. And is that why would he be so nervous? I mean, just can't forget that he was in the middle of that civil lawsuit. And he knew he was getting to the, to the big players, the big wigs, Kasarik and Vogel. And when this started to go down, he's like, oh my God, they're going to find their way out of this. I think that's what came to his mind. And he's like, they're not going to let this happen for me. They're going to do whatever they can to stop this from happening. The timing here is miraculous, and I think as a truther, I say to myself, what is it that could have possessed? If Stephen Avery did this, he is an absolute monster. There's no doubt in my mind, but that is not in his history to do that. There aren't these types of events in his history, so to me, it's not believable that he did it, and especially right then. When he's on the precipice of bringing down the people who did him in, and that was what was most important to him, right? So it's not believable, and just miraculous timing. What a boon for the state. How is it even possible?
Yeah, it's definitely. I'm with you there. Cal, do you have any comments to add to us?
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to what we were talking about with Pam. While we were doing this, I was doing my own little research in the back. I just want to put that back out there with the Pam call that we went through that I found interesting, that I hadn't really ever really taken interest in before. I went back and I looked at some of the transcription of the actual call, and then I went into the trial to see what her and her daughter said in terms of what order things happened. There's something really interesting. So I know I believe it's Kaboom has been saying this for a while. He keeps saying something very odd he saw when he listened to the Pam call, and that was, so when we hear Wiegert says, does it look like a newer one? Pam, yeah, it's the 99 to 2000. Wiegert, is there any? Pam, listen to this. It's more of a bluish green though. That's why we don't want to put, And then he says, is there any license plate on it? And then the reason, so that little bit I wanted to capture, which was, we don't want to put, Again, open for interpretation, could be nothing, but put what? Put what, where, and put, what are you talking about? Then it goes down to
blood.
After that, can you get in front of the car? Pam, yeah, I will. And then it goes, Wiegert, I don't know if they had the Toyota sticker on it. I don't know about that. Pam, is it okay if I go in the car? Wiegert, no, do not go in the car. Do not touch the car. Pam, yeah. Wiegert, stay on the outside of the car. Go over to the front of the driver's side. Pam, yeah, I realize that. I'm in the business, so I kind of know, but I can't find the VIN number. I'm picking up the wiper. Then she goes on about she can't see it because of her glasses. That's why she was struggling. So then what I did was I went back to the trial because I wanted to see in what order. Are they claiming that they went into the car before the call or after? And this is what we got. We have, so this is the Pam one. After the phone question, after the phone call was made to law enforcement authorities, where did you go? Nicole, I stayed right near my mum, right near the vehicle, and after law enforcement was contacted, we moved a little away from the vehicle. We just kept our eyes on the vehicle at all time. So that's her, for me, interpretation. It sounds like after the call, they didn't try to get into the car. She's talking about moving away from it, just watching it. Then if we go up a little bit further, we have them ask, we have, excuse me, we have question. After Investigator Wiegert told you to step away from the vehicle and do not touch it further, did you or Nikki do that? Pam, yes, we did. We probably went, I don't know, probably about 1,000 yards. Again, on directions, I'm terrible. Question, Miss Stern, who took the photographs of, so then they go on about the, this is back to Nicole, and then they asking about who took the photos, and she says, I am. Then he asks her, and other than taking photos, can you tell the jury what else did you do around that vehicle? This is Nicole. With a tissue, I checked all 4 doors to see if any of the doors were open. They were all locked. So none of the 4 doors were open. I also used my cell phone to call the sheriff's office. Question, can you describe this tissue a little bit better? Nicole, sure. Because it was a cold November day, I bought a ton of tissues with me because my nose was running and whatnot. I had to clean the tissue within my pocket. My mum stated, please use, I don't want to disturb anything, so please use your shirt or sleeve or whatever you have to avoid touching the vehicle. I thought I better than I had a clean tissue in my pocket, so I used that. I did check all 4 doors to see if anything was open. They were all locked. So again, this is an interpretation from all this, but it sounds like they tried prior. So if they had already tried prior and they knew that the doors were locked, it begs the question, why is she asking to go in it? And again, put what where? What doesn't she want to do? It just very weird context. Again, could be nothing sinister, but I just wanted to touch base on that. On an overall of the end of this, I just want to say great podcast again, guys. This is great. Still enjoying it, loving it. Yeah. If you guys want to bounce off that or end it, it's up to you guys.
Just my curiosity, Kel, was that trial that you read, was that from the pre-trial or the trial?
The trial.
Trial. During the pre-trial, Pam and God can't even remember that it's a 4-door car.
Yeah.
Well, that's right.
It's a 2-door.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess for my final comments today, I just kind of wanted to say that I think I'm going to start a list, and it's the 1985 Hall of Shame. And to get this award, you have to have been deposed by, just have had a deposition, and then you also play an important evidentiary role in this case. So today, my first 2 inductees are Lank and Colburn, as they've been mentioned about with the key. And so my first 2 inductees of the 1985 Hall of Shame are Lieutenant Lank and Colburn.
Wise choices.
I think you should expand your wall of shame to say evidentiary or investigatory. So there's somebody that's going to pop up as well who was deposed, who does some investigation.
Right. Again, these are people that shouldn't have been involved in the case. I just want to say thanks again to the guests and to the people that have contributed and have been listening and enjoying it right along with us. We got this is the end of episode 2, so I think we're making pretty good progress. And I just want to thank everybody out there again. Thank you. And I think we're going to be hitting the trenches here pretty soon. it might really start to change how much we get through. I said that a couple weeks now, but we keep making pretty good time. So thanks everybody for coming and hanging out, and we'll see you next week. This has been Discussing a Murderer.